Thank you so much for listening today. I'm sitting down with Sandra Bellows, who is on the marketing team for North America at Shopware, which is a website platform. And Sandra, I would love for you to tell the audience a little bit about your role. Maybe you could say your full title and what your job entails.
Sure. Happy to be here, first of all. So my official title is Growth Marketing Manager. I don't know, a little bit of background about Shopware. We're a very large company in Germany, but relatively small here in the US. So we're only, I think, between 15 or 20 people. So our marketing team is relatively small. So even though my title is Growth Marketing Manager, I think we do, along with my counterpart, a lot of other different things. So event marketing is a big part and partner marketing as well. So on the growth marketing side, I manage a lot of the campaigns we're running here in the US and a little bit globally as well. And then on the partner marketing side, working with our technology partners and agency partners to run co-marketing campaigns, create content together. And then, on the event marketing side, just driving attendance to our events we run with our partners sometimes or just our own.
Yeah. Sandra and I actually work together. I work at an agency that is a partner agency of Shopware. And we're in New York today because Shopware actually had an event here in New York in Brooklyn called Shoptoberfest, which was so fun. And it was an event for partners, right? And we were bringing together agency partners, merchants that are on Shopware as well. And we all kind of gathered in Brooklyn. I know that there was kind of a breakfast, lunch and learn with PIMCore earlier in the day. And then everyone gathered to hang out and hear TED Talk style presentations from merchants and other members of the ecosystem at the Shoptoberfest. So that was super fun.
Yeah, it was great. I think we really wanted to bring the community together. So also we had a couple of influencers there as well that were doing podcasting. But I think in general, we wanted to create a little bit of a different event with the TED Talk style. I think that was huge, but also really embracing our German heritage. So we really made it Oktoberfest themed, which I think was very fun. Also being German myself, I think that was very fun to celebrate Oktoberfest. Yeah, so we hoped everyone had a good time, learned a little bit, but also just, met with the people they wanted to meet with and got some podcasting in. And yeah, I think it was really important for us to just bring our community together. And I think it turned out pretty well. I'm glad it's over.
Yeah, I'm sure it was like a lot of work bringing all those folks together. There were people from all over the country that attended. And I just know that in planning things like that on a much smaller scale on the agency side, coordinating that many bodies in one venue is a lot of logistics. So you did a great job.
Thank you.
I want to dive more into Shopware, but before that, I would love to hear a little bit about your life because I know you're from Germany. We had a chance to actually grab dinner before this interview today. And I learned that she is from Berlin and she now lives in America. And I would love to hear a little bit about your early life, your schooling, and what brought you to America.
Yeah. So before I came to the US, I was actually a professional athlete, which I know is a little bit unusual because I was very young. So I was very fortunate to, I guess, be good at volleyball. I also played for a club that was very successful. So I guess that was the luck part a little bit. But yeah, I played in the highest professional league at a very young age, the first Bundesliga for everyone that knows soccer. So it's really the highest. Also played for the youth national team and junior national team. So for about 6, 7, 8, I don't even remember, for a long time, I just had that very unique and intense experience of being a professional athlete while also going to high school. So I went to a sports high school back in Berlin. So we were all just athletes. So we were very much supported with our schedule to align it to our practice and things like that. And after doing that for a couple of years already, at a, again, young age, I decided I wanted to get an education, which is a little bit difficult if you play at that level. You would have to do it online because you're moving around a lot, you're switching clubs. And yeah, I just decided I wanted to go to university and basically get it done. So one of the, I would say, only places in the world to do that, to do both, to play and also get an education is the US because you play for the university, right? So that's how I decided to come to the US and ended up at Temple University in Philadelphia. My coach was German at that time, so it made it very easy for me to just get all of the paperwork done. My English was not that great at that time. So yeah, that just made it so much easier. So yeah, I packed my bags and flew to Philadelphia and just decided
With your suitcases, and that's it, right?
That's it. I had never been to Philadelphia before. I didn't see Temple. I just saw it on pictures. And
wow.
that's where the adventure started. Yeah.
Yeah, very brave. So when you started at Temple, did you have a sense that you were going to continue your career in sports, like with volleyball? Or did you already know like you wanted to pursue a career outside of athletics?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to pursue a career outside of athletics. I think my passion was always design.
Oh,
The
cool.
only kind of internship I did after high school before I went to university was at a fashion designer. That was my first dream. I wanted to become a fashion designer and then decided this is really difficult. I don't know if I'm actually talented enough. Is it a hobby or can I actually turn this into a profession? So I wasn't really convinced. So during that internship, which I did in marketing, I kind of saw the connection between, hey, I can be creative, but there's also the business side of it. So yeah, I decided to study marketing and didn't really have a plan. I didn't know what's going to happen after college, but that was the idea, when I started or decided for my major.
And I think it's so common to kind of enter into what the most visible role is within design. Design is such a all-encompassing term that means a lot of different things, a lot of different roles, especially now we know. I think it's really common for folks to enter into like the designer path or role because it is so visible. And it's so like the person that's actually designing clothes, apparel, it's something that's shown in our culture on TV. But there is so much within design, like within marketing, within what you do, even event design, event marketing, that is also really where you can be creative and really exercise that aspect of yourself. So I want to hear how you transitioned from the goal of designer, like maybe fashion designer, to like, okay, maybe I'm going to do something else, do something within marketing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I took the first marketing classes and I just thought, this is really cool, right? It's not so designy, but again, it's very creative. Yeah. And I just like to merge or two types of businesses or functions. Yeah, so I think I just decided for myself, I think this is the right way. And also, I think it's broad enough to then after college to decide, do I want to go the more creative way or do I want to go the analytics way or the content, right? Or even actually do design. So I think it just gave me a lot of options. Now looking back, very happy that I did that.
Yeah. And I think also depending on the organization that you join, you sometimes can wear all the hats, especially if you're at a smaller organization or a rapidly growing organization, startup type of culture, you end up wearing all the hats, which can be really great experience too, exposing yourself to many different types of roles. And I think that's kind of a recurring motif in the interviews that I have with others on this show, that the advice that they give is like, expose yourself to all the different hats because you don't know what you're going to be most into unless you try it. So I want to hear a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like, because I think a lot of people don't even know your role exists at companies and like how cool it is. So would love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So I think my day-to-day is very different. It really depends what we have coming up. So now we had a huge event coming up, right? So leading up to this, for Oktoberfest themed, right, or branded, I actually had to develop the branding. So I worked with our design team.
It was so cute.
Yeah.
So I love it.
To figure out how do we merge Oktoberfest with Shopware.
Right.
And yeah, how do we merge this? And, it has to still be Shopware branded, obviously. Like you have to look at the branding and be like, okay, this is Shopware, right?
Like you're still a tech platform.
Exactly.
It has its own brand guide, coloring, typography they have to use. But you want it to still be creative to a theme and stand out and have it be fun for an event to attract people to go to it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also, this is is the first one. So we plan on having this every year. So it also has to be a branding that can be evolved and just be there for many more years. So that was one part. And then I worked with our events logistic person to just figure out more of the logistics. Where is the branding going to be placed? What do we have to design? Whether this is napkins or little handouts, right? Yeah, you have to think through all of these steps. And we started the process about 6 months ago. And then you work very closely with the sales team because you need to have people there.
Yeah.
And it was a merchant-centric event. So, you work with them to figure out how do we drive attendance, our current customers, prospects, figure out the speakers, and then the same with the partner team, right? How do we get our partners there? And yeah, so I think generally speaking, it's working with all of the departments and kind of being the centerpiece and trying to figure out how do we bring all of them together to put our brand out there, whether this is through an event, through a content piece, through ads, through an email campaign. It really depends. But yeah, I think I do a lot of talking to people.
You do well. So for an event like that, what is the overarching objective and how does that filter down into how you think of your objectives for your team? If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I have my KPIs, right?
Right.
So I think it's getting the merchants there,
Okay.
getting our brand out there.
Yeah.
We want to build a stronger community here in the US. We just launched the US business about 2.5 years ago. Shopware is very, very known in Germany.
In Europe,
Everyone knows
it's
Shopware.
huge in Europe. Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. And then now we came to the US and no one really knew Shopware. And it's a very...
They're like, did you say Shopify?
Yeah, seriously.
Right. It's because you're brand building. When you bring
a
brand to a new country, that seems to be your objective for your team is like, how do we take this brand that is so established and well-known in Germany and in Europe, and how do we translate it and serve it to an American audience, communicate that like trust factor of like, there are big companies like B2B companies, not just B2B, but really large corporations in Europe that have been on Shopware. So it's a strong, trustworthy platform and communicating it to an audience that doesn't have that, existing knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a very fun and challenging challenge.
Yeah.
I think working with the German team is, of course, we're taking a lot of learnings, but it's, again, no one knows us now, I hope, after 2.5 years, right? Our name got out there. But yeah, it's interesting. And as you said, building the trust is a little bit more difficult here. And it's also a cultural thing. The US is just a very different market. You can be a little bit more aggressive here with your language and what you put out there versus in Europe. So yeah, it's been fun. And I think we're doing a good job. And I think the event yesterday was also a huge milestone for us to tell the US, hey, we're here now. We're established. Look at this event. We had people attend. The community's here. They're supporting us.
A lot of merchants were there.
A lot of merchants,
I met really cool business owners there. A wide variety of industries were represented. So I feel like it was it seemed successful to me. I had a great time too.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear about how you work with partners, specifically like agency partners. I'm a partner. So maybe you can kind of talk about that relationship, how we depend on each other and work together. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm a little bit new to the partner marketing world, quite honestly. This is like where we talked about earlier, right? You're in a startup environment and you just have to take on whatever, is there or where their opportunity is. And I think for us, it's working with our partners. And I think we can build trust through them and go to market together. I think attaching our name to our partners and vice versa is a good strategy. And we both benefit from each other. Yeah. So I think running campaigns together towards our target audience, right?
Yeah.
Whatever we define before, I think is very powerful. And just on a personal note, I love working with our partners. I think it's really fun. I think they're all very invested, and so are we, and it feels like a true partnership.
Yeah.
And
from the perspective of the partner, so agencies, they will be working directly with merchants. Just my agency Chronix, we do web development, we build e-commerce websites, apps. We also have like digital marketing services, and we have these existing relationships with merchants, with brands. Most of my brands that I work with are in the US, but I do have some international brands too. But for a company like Shopware, it's a really smart thing to partner with agencies because it's a way to leverage those trusted relationships you have with merchants on the agency side. They trust me to do the vetting of technology platforms. Yeah. We have the experience building Shopware websites or managing Shopware websites or doing marketing on a website that is on Shopware. So we're able to be that trusted advisor for our client and just be like, I know you haven't heard of Shopware, but this is my experience with XYZ client on Shopware. This is the data that's coming in from Europe. These are the brands in Europe that are using Shopware. And, we're subject matter experts. A lot of the brands that we work with, a lot of times, like the person that I meet with regularly, they may not be, the website manager. Maybe they are a member of the marketing team of the brand, but not just digital marketing. Maybe it encompasses more than that. So they can't, be the IT expert. So they have to rely on their trusted agency relationship to be like, is this a platform that we should trust? Should we build on it? Should we look at it for our upcoming replatforming of our website? So I think in that way, it's a really smart thing for platforms like Shopware to partner with agencies. But yeah, I would love to hear more about how you got working with Shopware. I know you are German. So did you already have an awareness of Shopware already? Did that factor into your deciding to join the team or?
Good question. I actually didn't know Shopware before. Okay. It was a coincidence, more or less, that I ended up here. I actually applied for a different job. And then the recruiter that was working with Shopware was like, hey, where's your accent from? And I'm like, well, I'm German. And he was like, well, I'm working with a company called Shopware. Let me see if they need marketing people. I was like, okay, cool. And then, I think 4 weeks later, I was basically hired. And I mean, I love the story of Shopware, founded by two brothers, right? 20 years ago. I think they were in their they were 14, 15. Wow. They were extremely young. Yeah. In this small town called Schöppingen. I don't even think it's a town. I think it's a village. I've been there once. Yeah. So I just love that story. It kind of has this community factor and family factor. And that's how I felt when I, went through the interviews. Obviously loved the product and decided to make the move. Of course, Shopware being German, I was like, yes, I can practice my German again. So that was really great. So I really enjoy also working with the German team very closely. Yeah.
Did you find, so I would love to hear about your experience working on the marketing team of a tech company, because it's different than working for a fashion label or a different industry. I feel like SaaS platforms, e-commerce, it has its own vocabulary around it. There's a whole ecosystem you have to learn. Did you have prior tech experience or did you go in learning everything yourself?
Yeah. I didn't have a classic, I would say, e-commerce background, but my previous company built loyalty programs, payment programs, and customer experience programs for retailers. So, a lot of the tech partners were very similar. So I definitely understood that ecosystem. So again, not an e-commerce background, but it's not that everything was completely new to me. However, I still had to learn, what does an e-commerce platform actually do? So from that sense, I really started from scratch. But I mean, I think you can learn anything.
Right.
And if you put your heart into it, you can literally learn anything. And also in some ways, you have to, right? If you want to do a good job, and for me in marketing, I have to speak the language of my audience. So it is very important for me to learn the product and to understand who is my audience, what do they talk about, what are their pain points, and how do they talk about it? Yeah, so it's part of my job, I would say,
And I also think that, tech and e-commerce is something that is changing and developing all the time.
Yeah.
What the topics that are trending change all the time. Some technologies go out of date and different ones come into fashion. And I always want to, some people, well, maybe it's my own personal experience, but I think I was really intimidated when I first started my career in e-commerce because I just felt like I needed to be a web developer or I needed to know what all the acronyms, all SaaS, ROAS, like I needed to know everything and memorize everything. I remember I would have these like notebooks where I would like have these terms,
Mm-hmm.
but it's you learn on the job. And
Yeah.
that's like with any position, even if you've been in it for many years, you are constantly learning on the job. And so I would say if you're in a marketing function in another industry and you have an interest in going into e-commerce or tech, just go for it because a lot of the same principles apply insofar as identifying an audience, segmentation,
Mm-hmm.
messaging, being where your target audience is and delivering those messages to them. So yeah, is there kind of like on that topic, is there any advice that you would give to young people who are interested in marketing, who would want to work for a company like Shopware or even have your position? Like what would you say to them?
I mean, I think it's be brave, speak up, right? I think especially women, they often tend to take a backseat, especially in male-dominated industries,
Yeah.
which I would say the tech industry is still very much male-dominated. But yeah, be brave, speak up. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Not really much, actually. And I think it's also ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If you don't know what something means, just ask. Like, there are other people in the room that maybe also don't know.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, and I think just do your work. And I think if you work hard, yeah, you can achieve anything essentially, and you can learn anything. So I think, yeah.
Great. And I think also for women, I was reading a study and I'll put it in like the captions or whatever, but it was like men, if they don't fulfill all of the qualifications of a job, they'll still go for it.
Yeah.
But women tend to not go for a position if they feel like they don't check all of those boxes of what for that specific role. And that kind of it puts us at a disadvantage because there are so many women that are so qualified and would be so great in those positions, but they're not going for it. So
Yeah.
maybe the takeaway for our interview is like, go for it.
Go for
Just
it.
be
Yeah.
brave.
And I mean, I think also if you see women at your company that are maybe like lower, they're an intern, meet with them on a weekly basis, help them out, because I'm pretty sure I wanted that. I also had that at times. And I
Same.
was so thankful and grateful just to be in a room with a woman to ask dumb questions sometimes, and talk about the challenges and the pain. And I think also a podcast like this is great, right? Bringing women in, giving them a platform and talking about these types of things. And this kind of like, hey, you're not alone. We've all been there. I think is pretty great. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I kind of want to do like a pivot a little bit because I just want to hear about what is exciting you right now. What are you really into right now? It could be anything. It could be like for me right now, I'm training for a marathon. That's like my thing. but it could also be maybe you're really into cooking right now. I just want to know what is exciting for you in your life right now.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think being an athlete and then also graduating and sports just took over your life for so many years. I think it's just something that I would say athletes in general struggle with. You graduate and you're like, what are actually my hobbies? Because, playing volleyball for me was my life essentially for so long.
It's like a full-time job.
It
You're at that
is,
level.
yeah. And you don't have time for really anything else,
Yeah.
quite honestly. Yeah. So I think I definitely want to dive deeper in certain things I really loved, which was drawing, kind of the fashion part. I don't think I'm going to start sewing again, but maybe, maybe I'll buy a new sewing machine and, go back to that a little bit. I think that would be great. I do love cooking. I love good food, but that's something I've been doing for a really long time. I would say going back to the roots, sewing, and then just continue to become a better chef.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you can talk about New York. How often do you come to New York often for work?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you have any favorite places you like to go in New York?
Well, I really like the Williamsburg area.
Mhm.
Just being from Berlin, I think it's very similar.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So I kind of like that vibe. I used to live in New York for 1 year, which was really fun when I was a little bit younger, so I could do all the fun stuff here in New York. But yeah, I think the Williamsburg, Brooklyn area, very great food, lovely cafes. But I think the art scene, generally speaking, in New York is also really great.
Super.
Yeah.
And it's great for marketing too, of course. Like it's
Yeah.
definitely one of the centers for me in my head as far as like marketing for tech, for e-commerce, it's like LA, New York, Miami, like Austin.
Yeah, it's a very fast-paced
Right.
city. Every time I'm here, I go home and I'm like, okay, let's go. I look at my to-do list and I don't know, I think it's a very motivating city.
Because everyone is around you
Yeah.
is like, that's kind of the cool thing about New York too, is just like there's a lot of people in different industries like finance and fashion that are just like hustling. It's very fast paced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People just literally walk a little bit faster here.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Do you think being an athlete informed like how you approach your career? Maybe
Yes.
managing your time, right? Because you had to do that your whole life. So
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm very good at managing my time because I never had a lot of time. Starting age 14, I had to go to practice, do my homework. So at a very young age, I had to learn to figure out when to do my homework and to do it well. And I think now I would say I can work really fast and produce very high quality, stuff,
Quickly.
like whatever it is. So I think that's definitely something I like that I took that over. I think it's being tough. If you have a coach that yells at you, every day.
Or taking constructive criticism in stride,
Yeah.
probably.
And
Yeah.
now, sometimes when we're going through not difficult times, but, certain challenges come up, like a campaign is not going well, I think I can deal with that pretty well and have the patience and, am able to take a step back and like, okay, let's figure this out. Like, let's not stress,
Yeah.
because I think I was in these very extreme situations. Yeah. So I think that's very beneficial now for my job.
Yeah. Do you feel like in your family, was it unusual for women to like go into full-time working career ambition? Was that like unusual in your family dynamic, or was that pretty expected or already modeled by women in your family? I'm just curious.
It was, yeah. So my mom was also a volleyball player.
Oh, cool.
She actually went to the Olympic Games
Wow.
in 1988.
Cool.
Yeah, in Seoul. So I had that role model.
Yeah.
It's not why I started playing volleyball. She never pushed me to do it. But of course, right? When you're younger, you're often like, oh, I want to be like my mom. So I'm like,
Aw.
let me try this. And yeah, she was a single mom. So I think having a full-time job and supporting, I also have a sister, 2 kids. Yeah, I think that's just something I always looked up to, be independent, a strong woman. Yeah. So
I can relate to that. My mom was working when I was younger. My mom worked in like nail salons. So I was like always seeing her like wake up early, going to work, making her own money. And I think that definitely rubbed off
Yeah.
on me. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go to work in the morning. I'm going to make
Yeah.
my own money, be independent, do what I want. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And she drove us to practices in between work, because my sister also played volleyball, surprise. Yeah. So I always looked up to that. And it's like, I want that. And she was just so strong during that time.
An Olympian.
Yeah.
Like the strong, like
literally strong.
literally.
Yeah. So
Cool.
yeah, she's a great woman.
Were there any other women in your life that really made an impact on you other than your mom in your career, just like the way you wanted to be as an older woman? Yeah.
I mean, my sister is younger, but I think I'd also definitely look up to her. She also came to the US. I think her personality is a little bit different than mine. She's a little bit more shy, I would say. But, coming over here, you have to be very brave. And she did that. So we're very close. I'm very happy that she's also here. So I have a little bit of family here. I think then also in my very first job and now at Shopware, seeing women in leadership,
Totally.
leadership roles is something I always look up to. And I always try to listen. Like, how do they talk, right? What do
Yeah.
they do? How do they
How do they
present
show
themselves?
up to events?
Exactly.
How do they work a room?
Yeah.
That's what I would look at too.
I mean, I guess that's also one advice is never stop learning,
Yeah.
Always watch people. Just try to kind of replicate or, take it on and then, you can transform it in your own ways. But, I think it's always definitely worth it to look at people that are very successful, how they present themselves, what they say. Yeah.
I also think that it's helpful to know how a system or an organization works and like understanding the existing systems in place first really well before coming in and putting your disruptive ideas in place.
Absolutely.
I think that's like a really good advice to give to younger people. It's something that I had to learn because then you are going to be more persuasive and influential. If you can show first that, okay, you know the system really well, you know how it works, you know the rules, but you can be like, this is a better way. I know the system. This is what I propose. And then your impact is greater, right?
Yeah,
like,
I absolutely agree. It's like you've done your work, and then you've also earned your trust a little bit, I think, as opposed to, coming in right away and, you have a million suggestions, which is, you have to speak up, but, there has to be a balance a little bit.
Yeah, especially I think like something that I find really interesting is generational differences. Everyone talks about how Gen Z is so digitally native. There's so many articles, some of them eye roll articles about like how Gen Z shows up in the workplace, communicates differently, has different expectations, levels of formality maybe in the way they show up. And I think that my discussion of like knowing the rules first and the structures in place first before being really disruptive, that's kind of like what I was thinking. I was like, there's so many valuable things that can be learned from Gen Z and whatever XYZ after them. I think the way to operate in an organization where maybe you have to share spaces with older generations that have their own way of doing things is to show that you know the rules and you know the structure super well. Show yourself to be super capable in that system and then come in with your disruptive ideas.
I think that's great advice. Yeah.
But I'm definitely one of those people that is like super excited about Gen Z and how digitally native people are and the fact that people can have such a platform so much quicker than in years past because of social media, because of TikTok. I think it's so cool and exciting.
I agree. I mean, I think a lot of people are criticizing that type of approach, but I always feel like it's a business, right? Like, I mean, you don't just get these
audience numbers.
Yes.
You don't laugh at the audience numbers, like the engagement.
And you don't get them overnight either, right? There's a lot of work behind it when it comes to content creation. There's strategy behind it. And I think if you get to a certain level, these people often also don't work alone anymore. They have a mini business, right?
Totally.
They have content strategists or designers or, if you're in the fashion world, stylists you're working with. And I think it's extremely impressive. And I am also excited to work with this generation and learn. And I mean, they also just have a different point of view. And I think same with the older generations. And that's always very exciting to bring different generation, women, men, right? Different races together. I think that's just what we need.
We benefit from a wider range of experiences and identities being at the table, putting their input, guiding the strategy, because ultimately our audience is comprised of all of us. So we need to all
diverse.
have it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. It was so sweet of you to come on. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys check out Shopware. They're a really exciting platform, an amazing organization. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great day.